It's time for another MapPorn review video. So once again, we are going through the top posts on the MapPorn subreddit for this past week, and we're just gonna go through and look at them, and I will give you my reaction and my commentary. So, never know what you're gonna get every week. I never go on MapPorn except for to make these videos, so this is all brand new to me. The world's longest non-stop flights. So that's interesting, and this is really more of like a graphic than I guess a single map. But okay, so Perth, Australia to London, UK, Houston, Texas, United States to Sydney, Australia, and from Auckland, New Zealand to Doha in Qatar, Singapore to New York is the longest flight, coming at 18 hours and 45 minutes. That's crazy. And you can see, so I'm assuming these little globes here are actually true globes. And the name of the projection escapes me, ortho something projection. But the point is that it's meant to simulate you looking down at a globe from space. And of course, if you're looking at a sphere from outer space, you can only see 50% of it. So for the Singapore to New York flight, you can see how close those dots are to the edges of the circle, which means that you're pretty much flying to the opposite point on the Earth. And of course, let's see, I know that China is opposite Argentina on the globe, and Singapore is south of China, which means that Singapore is just north of the equator, so the opposite point to Singapore would be, probably somewhere around in Peru maybe or something. So I guess New York is still in the northern hemisphere. It's not quite, totally the antipode, but yeah, you can see this is just about as long a flight as you can get, right? You can't really get longer than 19 hours or so. That's kind of crazy. I don't know why anybody would do such a flight. For me, flying to Europe, or places like Turkey and stuff, Russia, it's like a 9-10 hour flight. It's already, I don't know, kind of difficult physically to just sit in one spot. So, unless you're in first class and you have like a bed or something, it just seems like a lot. But, so 18 hours, I don't know, man. I would rather stop somewhere. I don't know how I would do it. I guess you would maybe fly through, but then even Europe to Singapore is just so far. Okay, so that's that. Okay, let's see. The newest republic in the world, Barbados. So this is kind of a dumb, well, okay, I shouldn't say that. So this map is commenting on the fact that Barbados recently changed its form of government from a constitutional monarchy where the head of state was Elizabeth II, the Queen of England and other places. She was also the Queen of Barbados, to now presumably a parliamentary republic. I'm not sure, but because it's a former British colony, I'm assuming it follows the British style system of government, where there is a parliament, there are political parties elected to that parliament, and the leader of the party that has the most members is the prime minister, who then leads the government. So Barbados has gone, as of, 3 days ago, has gone from being a constitutional monarchy under the Queen to a parliamentary republic under the Barbados legislature, whatever it's called. So, I mean, in day-to-day life, in reality, this doesn't really change anything. It's just mostly a symbolic thing to symbolize the, transition of Barbados to sort of being a country that's no longer associated with Britain. So, and, I don't know too much about that event. And of course, so that's why I'm opening up the comments here, but, it's a small country. It's in the Eastern Caribbean, and I was just thinking, should I say Caribbean or Caribbean? I kind of say both. I think naturally I say Caribbean, but supposedly the correct pronunciation is Caribbean. Yeah, it's a small enough country that you can see sort of individual neighborhoods on this island here. And it's cool. I guess it's cool that they give a relief map so you can see the terrain. You can see Mount Hillaby, which apparently is the highest point, but only at 1,100 feet or 340 meters, which is not that high up. Okay, so 3 days ago, it was, I guess, approved or something, and then the newly elected president takes office tomorrow. So instead of having the Queen as the ceremonial head of state, now there is a president who is the ceremonial head of state. So, okay, so at this point I've talked about it enough where I should probably look it up to see if what I'm saying is actually correct. Okay, so here we go. To a parliamentary republic, okay, good, so my guess was correct, with a ceremonial, indirectly elected head of state, the prime minister is the head of government, and the the Sandra Mason, who was the Governor General of Barbados, was elected as the country's president to take over the role of the Queen, basically. And in British, not British style countries, but in countries that were formerly British colonies that retained the Queen as the head of state, such as Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and so on, there's a Governor General who's pretty much the Queen's official representative. And I guess in the case of Barbados, that would be Sandra Mason right here. So, and she, I suppose, is, as of November 30th, the new president of the country. But it's not like the United States. It's not like France, where the president actually has political power. In this parliamentary system of government, the president is, mostly ceremonial. The spiritual leader of the country, something similar to what the function that the Queen performs in the UK society. I think other countries that have a similar system would be Italy has a similar system. Let's see. What other parliament? It's usually smaller countries. Russia Russia's a semi-presidential, so technically the head of government is the prime minister of Russia, actually not the president, but the president does have very real powers, and Russia's a bad example because, first of all, the president has a lot of indirect power. At being Vladimir Putin, he has a lot of indirect power and influence, but also the constitution of Russia is being changed every so often, and so the form of government there is still settling. So, yeah, Barbados. I mean, okay, let's see what other parliamentary republics there are in the world. So there aren't that many, right? There's Germany. Oh, that's a good example. Yeah. So Germany has a chancellor who is pretty much the prime minister, and then there is actually a president of Germany who attends like ribbon cutting ceremonies and things like that. India is a good example too. Narendra Modi is the prime minister. He as the leader of BJP, the largest political party. But then I forget the name of the president. I believe he's was relatively recently elected, the first untouchable caste president. But anyway, he's the ceremonial president. So there's a couple other countries like that. So this map actually is probably more interesting than the map of Barbados. So we might as well analyze it since it's already open on the screen here. So full presidential republics. I think the first example historically was the United States. Looking at the countries in blue here, they pretty much are either African countries that copied the US style of government, or there's some countries in Central Asia, Asia. It's pretty much all countries that copied the United States form of government. And the way a full presidential republic works is there's a legislature that passes the law, which in the US case is the Congress, and then the president's job is to execute the law however he or she sees fit. So the president has a lot of power in, first of all, controlling the country's military in many cases, and second of all, the president gets to decide how exactly the laws are executed within the legislative mandate. Also in the US, the president has veto power, which means if something passed in Congress by more than 50% but less than 2/3, the president can strike it down. And I don't know about these Latin American countries or Central Asian countries, but I know Nigeria's form of government and Liberia is pretty much exact copies of the US. And I believe that South Korea also has a very similar system to the United States, as does the Philippines, I think. So in many of these countries, the president has this additional power of veto as well. Semi-presidential republic is kind of in between, as I mentioned before, a full presidential and a parliamentary system. So I guess if we take the case of, well, like I said, Russia is a bad example, but at least theoretically in Russia, the president controls the military, and the president also has, I'm not sure because they keep changing how this works. So the point is the president has some powers, but not as many as in the United States. So the parliament, or in Russia's case, the Duma, or the Congress, however it's called, the National Assembly, has slightly more power. And then finally, the parliamentary republics, where the parliament basically has all the power. That would be Germany, India, now Barbados, and all those orange countries. The parliamentary constitutional monarchies, that red category, is pretty much the same thing as the orange in terms of day-to-day functioning of the government. The parliament essentially has all the power, but I believe in the UK, this is where, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a historian, but I believe that the monarch of the UK does have the ability to dissolve parliament. I don't know, because I know Britain had a war between the royalists and the parliamentarians won. So I'm not sure what exactly that means. I'll have to, I don't know. I'll have to research it later for myself. That's Canada, Australia, UK. Spain has a king. Norway, Sweden, the Netherlands, these are all constitutional monarchies with a parliamentary system. And then there's other stuff. There's, there's like Saudi Arabia, which is an absolute monarchy. There's China, which is a single party system, along with Vietnam, Cuba, sort of the last remaining communist countries, Laos. And there's other stuff. The United Arab Emirates is almost like a collection of kingdoms that are kind of with one central government that handles foreign affairs and things like that, military. So those are sort of some of the more marginal systems. Okay, so anyway, we spent more time on this than on the actual MapPorn map, so that's interesting. So let's keep going. States resized to have the same population density as New Jersey. Okay, so if Texas was as densely packed as New Jersey, it would be this small instead of its actual size. So I don't know. I would prefer just a map of population density personally, but I suppose this is, I don't know, interesting thought experiment. I just don't know if this is the best way of portraying this data set, but yeah, I mean, you could see that Wyoming is very sparsely populated, as it turns out. And other states such as, I don't know, Ohio or Pennsylvania are kind of somewhere in the middle. New Jersey is the most densely populated state in the US, I believe. As you can see, Connecticut is about the same size as it was. And Maryland is close to the same size, and these are also very highly densely populated states, Massachusetts and Rhode Island. But I believe New Jersey is still number one. The color scheme here is not very helpful, but I believe that the colors is by total population. So the most populous US state is California, followed by Texas, Florida, New York, and so on. So that's how that is colored. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have really much to say on this one, so I'm just going to keep going. Oh, okay. This one I've seen before. This road trip will be the same temperature year round. So if you follow these dots, so let's do it. So on January 1st, we start here in Brownsville, Texas. And then we extremely slow drive over to, this looks like Laredo, Texas, and an even slower drive up to San Antonio. So you're spending the first 3 months in South Texas, and it's going to be, right, 70 degrees, 70 degree high temperature. In 70 degree high temperature in all these places. So you're doing that, and then finally things are speeding up. So we go from San Antonio over to the border with Oklahoma, just north of Dallas here on April 1st. And then, by April, May, June, between April and May, most of basically the United States has highs around 70 degrees. So we just keep going, we're driving. I'm assuming this was made in some clever way that still incorporates, because otherwise, why won't you just kind of drive in a straighter path, between Dallas and wherever this is. It looks like the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, like Harrisonburg or something. So anyway, it takes us a month to drive from here to here. And then another month is sort of a tour of the Midwest here, going on I-90 to Chicago, and then going up through Milwaukee up to like the Northwoods of Wisconsin, basically. And I don't know there's not really a city here, but it looks like, I don't know. I used to know, like Ironton, I forget what they're called, these places up here, but anyway, where this dot is located is that one national forest that has a really hard to pronounce name, where I've actually been once, and it's kind of cool. So that's June 1st. So we're already halfway through the year, and then we're going all the way. This is going to be interesting. It's like one of the most boring possible drives here through North Dakota and Montana, and then we kind of bend around and follow the mountain range here, basically following the Continental Divide. And we go to, okay, this is kind of weird. So we go to, well, I'm not sure exactly where this point, I mean, what is this, like Telluride or something? I don't know, just someplace like in northern, not northern, in the upper altitudes of Colorado. And we keep going, and we're spending some time, it looks like almost like an Aspen or something, and then we're going up to whatever that is, Steamboat Springs, I don't know, I'm just guessing here. So we're really spending like 3 months basically up here in the mountains of Colorado. And that's pretty much the only thing that'll save you from 80 degree temperatures is just the altitude. Anyway, we keep going now. So now it's October. So again, things open up. Most of the U.S. is going to be in the 70 degree temperature range. And we're able to go all the way through Nebraska. We're able to go now November. This is like, I don't know, west of Amarillo. And boom, boom, boom. Now we're in Santa Barbara. And then we go down all the way to San Diego. Now, the last time I saw this map, I don't know if it was on Twitter or on Reddit, but somebody joked that, or you could just drive around the block in San Diego for a whole year, and then it'll be 70 degrees every single day. So that was kind of funny and also very true. So I don't know how practical this is as like an actual road trip, because again, you're spending 3 months in South Texas and you're spending 3 months in the mountains of Colorado. I mean, I'm sure those are cool places. I've never been to South Texas, but Colorado's pretty nice. I would have no problem spending 3 months there. But I think that if you're trying to have a road trip where you're actually like moving from one place to another, what I would do is I would just loosen the temperature bounds a little bit. Like let's say anywhere from 68 to 78 degrees. If you're really craving that room temperature weather, it'd be nice if the creator of this map opened that temperature range up a little bit, so that we could have like slightly more normal driving patterns. Because if you could afford to have 68 degree weather, or even 65, right? Then you don't have to be stuck in Brownsville anymore. You could probably, it's tough because the only places in the U.S. that have like 65 degree weather in January is going to be like Miami, Brownsville, or maybe San Diego. I don't know. That's pretty much it. So I guess you're kind of, and the thing about Texas is that once you leave South Texas, there's like very high variability. You know, you could have a blizzard one week, and then you could have like 70-degree weather the next week in February. So yeah. Anyway, this is difficult, but I think if you're the kind of person who wants to go on a road trip and really experience the diversity and the size of the United States, I think that it's also important to expose yourself to a variety of different temperatures. So I'm not sure what the utility is of constantly having 70-degree weather, but somebody did this. Somebody made this map, so here we are. All right, piracy in the 21st century. So this is kind of just like a risk map, I guess. Source, International Maritime Bureau. I don't know what that is, that organization, but probably some kind of nonprofit. So the hotspots for piracy are the Gulf of Guinea off the coast of Nigeria, Cameroon, the Horn of Africa off of Somalia and Yemen, and then the Strait of Malacca, which is between Singapore and Indonesia. So two of these places, so the Horn of Africa and the Strait of Malacca are both places that are extremely important for international shipping. So I would say actually the majority probably of container ships pass through either one place or the other. I don't know about the Gulf of Guinea. The Gulf of Guinea doesn't have as much international shipping. It's not really like a choke point for shipping, but it is off the coast of Nigeria, and that is an area that produces a lot of oil and natural gas. So if I had to guess, I would say the Gulf of Guinea attacks are probably oil related in some way. Let's see. So apparently there's medium piracy also happening in the tropical regions of the Americas. I don't know too much about this, and I'm not sure exactly how true this is. I mean, how much piracy is there really in the in the Yellow Sea here in China? I don't know. Seems a little bit exaggerated. Let's open the comments and see if there's any like experts who have something to say here. Okay, so yeah, okay, one thing I was going to mention is that, yeah, it's true, piracy has gone down significantly in the last 10 years in Somalia due to the fact that the country is, basically the central government in Somalia is controlling more and more of the country, and that leads to less opportunities, less safe havens for pirates to operate. So what I was going to say is that this map is very heavily dependent year to year. So I wouldn't, in terms of these percentages of 43% of attacks, 30% of attacks, 19%, those are going to change a lot from year to year, especially as the situation in Somalia changes, especially as in Indonesia and Malaysia, the government may dedicate more resources to anti-piracy one year and versus another if there's a new government elected, things like that. So these things are very fluid. But let's see what else. Let's see what else is happening here in these comments. So this person, okay. So this person is surprised that the Brazilian coast is classified as medium. Looking at the source, they include cases of people sneaking onto docked vessels and stealing whatever they can carry. Okay, so that's like not, what's that movie called? Like Captain Phillips, where like a bunch of people actually take control of a container ship. I think that's what people think of when they think of modern day piracy. They're not thinking of like, just like petty theft, basically. Well, I don't know how petty it is. I mean, maybe you could probably steal, several $1,000s worth of stuff. But so it's good to know that this map also includes these incidents, because otherwise I wouldn't have expected certain areas to be yellow colored. So, all right. So how people call their homeland. This is a terrible map. This map is awful. Once again, as mentioned in previous videos, it's this Atlasova group of people. I don't know who they are, but if you are interested in accurate information, don't look at their maps, okay? Their maps are not accurate. They're fun. They're fun. They're maybe interesting to talk about, but I can tell you straight away. Okay, so what am I talking about? So it's true, some countries have words for motherland, fatherland, and so on. In, again, looking at Russia, which is famous in the West for being called the motherland, in fact, it's not so simple, right? So there's kind of like, there's a lot of different words in Russian, just like in other languages, for the homeland. There's, Mать Родина, there's like that probably is what I think of when I hear the word motherland, and that's kind of literally what it means, like our, the mother homeland. But there's also Отечество, which means fatherland. And the word, it's funny because the word fatherland, Отечество, is itself neuter gender. It's not a masculine word. So it's, you have one feminine word that references the mother. You have one neuter gender word that references the father. So it doesn't, to me, this map doesn't really make any sense. I think in Russian, the word Отечество, fatherland, is probably used more than motherland, like Мать Родина or like Матушка Россия. Like there's all sorts of different, I mean, if you're not a Russian speaker, it's harder to follow what I'm talking about here. But, there is the word just Родина. The word Родина means homeland or motherland, but there's no reference to a mother. It just means the land of your birth, literally. And the word Родина is feminine gender, but there's no reference to mothers. So anyway, the point is there's no reason for at least the countries that I'm familiar with the language to be colored the way they are. Okay, so let's talk about the United States, right? Homeland, I guess, is the word that people tend to use, the Department of Homeland Security. So, it's, I guess that truly is like a neutral word. What about France? Like, what is the word here? Actually, let's go in the comments because I'm sure that people will chime in. I'm Australian and I don't think we apply a gender to our homeland. So it's marked as feminine here. Yeah, okay, so let's see. So this map is basically garbage. Okay. Yeah, so what I was thinking, I opened up the comment because I was thinking of the French word, right? La patrie. Like that's like a feminine word, but it comes from the word for father, I'm pretty sure. But again, I wasn't sure about this. That's why I opened up the map. So this guy is talking about Portuguese, patria, which is clearly means fatherland, basically, but it's feminine gender. So, okay, anyway, this map is, this is a bad map. This is a misleading, false map. Okay. Safety walking alone at night. How safe do you feel to walk alone on the streets at night? There's a lot of potential issues with this map. I'm assuming this was done based on a survey. And the one thing that immediately pops out to me is I think a person's gender is very important to their perceived feeling of safety. So this map could literally just be a map of the percent male or female that answered this poll within each country, which might explain, for instance, the difference between Belarus, which is one of the lowest actually at 32% of people feeling safe at night, Belarus versus, I don't know, Ukraine or Russia, which are both significantly higher despite having extremely similar culture and I don't know, level of development. Within each country, it's also going to vary a lot. Within each city, there's safe neighborhoods and unsafe neighborhoods. I don't know. To me, this kind of makes the entire concept of this map very problematic. Let's open up the comments again because when it comes to Europe, I have some firsthand knowledge, some knowledge based on secondhand, but the comments usually shed some light on stuff. So France between Moldova and Belarus. As a Brit visiting Spain, I was amazed to see how many full families were still wandering about close to midnight. Yeah, but I think that's because of Spanish culture. In Spain, you're supposed to stay up until midnight, basically, versus like in northern countries, people usually go to bed much earlier, especially families, you know. In America, if you have kids, you know, the kids are in bed by like 8 or 9. And, you know, if you're a, I guess it used to be, I don't know, again, like with this, all this computer stuff and cyber internet, our internal clocks have been kind of messed up. So a lot of people are staying up later nowadays. But I think still to this day, most older people, 40s and 50s and so on, they go to sleep around 10:30 or 11 in the United States. Versus in Spain, it's quite normal for older people to stay up till midnight or 1 a.m. and sort of sleep in, or, you know, have their famous siesta in the afternoon to make up for the shorter nighttime sleep duration. So I don't know if that's like, so anyway, I don't know if this person's comment is related to like the true safety situation in Spain versus just the cultural differences in sleep patterns. Living in France and Spain, let me tell you something. Spain is 10 times safer than France. I'd seen girls walking at 3 a.m. in the middle of Madrid. I moved to a medium-sized Spanish city in my early 20s. The biggest change for me was walking anywhere without feeling unsafe. So I guess people are just commenting because a lot of people on MapPorn are from Britain and from Western Europe. So a lot of them are commenting on how safe Spanish cities are. And it's interesting. I don't know. I mean, what is it about Spain that makes them so safe? I'm not sure, you know? So, American living in Spain, I miss the sketchiness. There was a homeless man sleeping under the ground floor. It really made me feel at home. Oh, the sketchiness of America. Well, the U.S. is extremely diverse. I mean, there's truly unsafe areas, then there's areas that are more safe. But, okay, in the United States, again, in my experience as a guy, and usually I don't even walk around alone in the city, you know, it'd be me and my friends or something, but unless you really make yourself a target, again, as a guy, unless you are wearing flashy clothes or you're acting like you're lost or you have like a weird posture where people might see you as like being physically weak and easy to take advantage of, unless you fall into one of those categories, it's actually not very likely that someone is going to try to mess with you on the street. And this is even, you know, I spent some time in, you know, the not so good areas of Chicago. I know that, you know, where I went to school in the university, there's kind of a bubble in that area. And even, especially now compared to what it was like 6 years ago or 5 years ago, the bubble is definitely a lot safer. But you know, I've had more than my fair share of time outside this bubble. Actually, even within the bubble, we've had like 3 students get shot in the last year. So, but the point is that I had plenty of encounters with homeless people, beggars, people just, you know, like if you grow up in a suburb and you... is a culture shock for a lot of people when you're just walking down the street and there's people sitting on the street and saying hello. Like, to people who've only ever seen the suburbs or who haven't experienced this kind of stuff, it could be a culture shock. So, you know, there's also plenty of that, but nobody, I've never felt unsafe. I'll put it that way. So again, that's my perspective. And the whole point of my criticism of this map is that it varies hugely from person to person. It depends on who you are, what your behavior is, how you present yourself, including your gender and how you dress and things like that. All of those things affect how you're going to be targeted or not targeted at night. And there's no way to know how representative these samples are from each of these countries, you know? And also, we don't really know the sample size here. So for that reason, I am not sure how much I would really trust this map beyond just, just at all, honestly. I trust the comments section here a lot more. So after reading all these comments about Spain being safer, I feel like that might be true, but at the same time, maybe that's just people who are motivated to speak up after seeing this result on the map, you know, just confirmation bias. Let's sort by controversial. Okay, the Swedish are pussies. Well, there's like this narrative that is pushed by anti-immigrant people in Sweden and other countries that these like, immigration from Africa and the Middle East and stuff is creating these ghettos that are extremely unsafe, like no-go zones and things like that. And so, again, like politics plays into this. That is the frame that you see things through. And so when someone asks you, hey, do you feel unsafe walking around at night? You might start to think critically and think, okay, well, I should, as a matter of fact, yeah, I do feel unsafe with all these immigrants, so even this politics, so it's really hard to compare between different countries. I think it's much easier if this poll was conducted within a country over time. That would be much more interesting because to me, that would be much more methodologically sound. And again, without knowing how they did this, but with these types of maps, we've seen it before. It's probably just an online poll, like Instagram poll. It's not anything extremely rigorous. So anyway, I could criticize this all day. Here, let's just do a couple more comments. Okay, so there's like political stuff that's being downvoted, failed states, blah, 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 or tone down the racism, minority groups, yeah. So there's like a lot of political stuff to this, and if somebody asks this question to you on the street or online, especially online, you're gonna try to answer it through your like political frame of reference. So all sorts of reasons why these results are not reliable at all, and I wouldn't put too much emphasis on them. Date formats used worldwide. Okay, so let's see. Month, day, year. So this is an so first of all, there's an interesting concept of using a triple color map and using the CMY, cyan, magenta, yellow, because you can combine those two colors in 4 different ways, as the diagram shows, to demonstrate countries that use multiple date formats. So the United States uses month, day, year. So December 31st, 1999. That's how we say it in the US. That's actually not exactly true. That's how it's used in kind of everyday speech or, occasionally legal documents. But in the government, in the US government especially, there's an increasing trend towards day, month, year. So you'll hear, like, if you listen to clips of congressmen or something, they'll say 10th January 2007 or something like that. And I think that comes from the military, and it's gradually spreading through the government. So, and now actually, as it spreads through the government, you start to see it in sort of like local government or I don't know, even like homeowners association people that want to seem legit, they'll, instead of putting December 1st, 2020, they'll put 1st December or 1 December is how a lot of people pronounce it, which I think is kind of stupid, but anyway. So it looks like most of the world, frankly, uses day, month, year. There's some countries in green, including Germany and Sweden, Austria, South Africa, Afghanistan. I don't know how they got that information, but some countries in green that use a combination of day, month, year, and year, month, day. I think that makes sense. I haven't lived in Germany, and I don't know too many Germans or anything to be able to comment on it, but whenever I visit software pages or like see things written by Germans, I do tend to see year, month, day sometimes. So I think that's totally valid. And then I was aware that in East Asia, Japan, China, Korea, the year, month, day format is what's more popular. So let's just click, and then it looks like Canada is all three, but I'm guessing the comments will probably show us that Canada is one of those funny countries that it's so close to the US and so culturally similar, so there's a lot of influence there. But at the same time, they're influenced by Britain and Europe and the metric system. So from what I understand, in Canada, you use Celsius for the temperature outside. You use Fahrenheit for the temperature inside. You use metric for, Well, I don't know. You know, in Brit, I mean, there was some Reddit comment that listed all the specific situations, or maybe it was a Twitter thread, but it's like you use kilometers for certain things, and then you use feet and inches for other things. And in Canada, it's just a mess, and in the UK, it's also a bit of a mess because, you know, people still use miles per hour for car speeds. They use miles for distances, driving distances, and things like that. And then people in the UK still use pounds for body weight, or stone, which I forget if that's 20 pounds or 14 pounds, something like that. So anyway, it's okay, interesting. The federal government uses year, month, day in Canada. Well, that makes sense. But again, that's the federal government. That's not reflective of the general population, because even in the United States, the federal government increasingly uses day, month, year, which is not what most people use in everyday life. Aha, and the thing I forgot about Canada is they have French people. So if the document I'm looking at is written in French, I can be reasonably sure that 6/9/2021 means September 6th. Because that's how they say it in French, right? What is it? Le 6 septembre, whatever, 2021. So if it's written in English, then okay, it's confusing. Yeah, so. And honestly, when I personally like fill out forms and sign documents and stuff, I just write out the month. Like I literally write 25th NOV 2021. You know, I don't even bother with numbers because I just don't want to have to think, you know, if it's in like what language it's in, what context it's in. Is it for Europe? Is it for America? Is it an Asian document? It doesn't. So I just explicitly write out the month as a 3-letter abbreviation when I fill out forms. So that's what I use because it's just so confusing, frankly. So. Okay, let's go on. So, a map of Italy made out of pizza by Modernist Cuisine 2018. It is approaching dinner time as I'm recording this, so it's making me a little hungry because that actually looks kind of good. So, I wonder if this is like, what's it called? Italian style pizza, like traditional Italian pizza, or, I mean, it certainly doesn't look like American pizza. This looks like a pizza margherita, like with mozzarella and so, I mean, and personally, that's actually one of my favorite kinds of pizza. Let's see what the comments say. I'm just curious. Are the Alps stuffed? Or is it a pizza made out of the map of Italy? No, that would just be a paper. Yeah, that's true. Okay, all right. So there's nothing interesting there, sadly. I thought there would be some sort of discussion on American-style pizza versus Italian-style pizza, but none of that, sadly. And now we have the share of Europeans who have traveled at least once outside the EU. And, okay, there's a lot to analyze here. So it's a red-green color scale, which is discouraged for reasons of color blindness and also for reasons of sort of the connotations of green as good and red as bad. So typically we want to avoid using red and green color maps if we can. But this one basically shows that the highest percentages of people who travel outside the EU are in Sweden, Denmark, Austria. The UK and Ireland have pretty high percentages. And I think this is related to, and then the lowest percentages are in, it's kind of a split between Southern Europe, like Portugal, Spain, Italy, and Greece. And then Eastern Europe, Romania, Hungary is one of the lowest. Poland and Bulgaria and Lithuania. So my theory on why Sweden appears to be the highest is that, first of all, Sweden is extremely globalized, and so a lot of Swedish people, and this is 2014, so this is before COVID travel restrictions and things like that. So Sweden is highly globalized, and a lot of Swedish people travel. It makes sense, both for work, for pleasure, and things like that. And also, it seems like, so Norway is not a European Union country. And I should say that because this map is from 2014, the UK is still counted as an EU country. So Norway's not in the EU, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was some contribution of Swedish people traveling right across the border to Norway, as counting as, you know, traveling outside the EU, basically. Austria is interesting. You know, I'm not sure what would explain it. First of all, Switzerland is right there. Switzerland is a country that is not part of the European Union, so if you go to Switzerland, you're leaving the EU. But I don't see why more Austrians would visit Switzerland compared to, for example, French people, Germans, maybe even some Italians. So I don't know, but I mean, I know a lot of Austrians are big skiers, but so do they really, I mean, go to like Swiss resorts or something enough to really budge the map? I'm not sure. It also could be immigrants who travel back to their home country, which presumably, or which oftentimes is outside of the EU. So there's a lot here. And of course, Eastern European countries and Southern European countries, people in these countries tend to have smaller disposable incomes, so they're not going to be traveling as much for tourism purposes and things like that. So for that reason, we're going to see more in the red and orange zone in Eastern and Southern Europe, just because they're just not going to be, you know, doing tourist stuff outside of, well, any country, but, you know, especially the European Union. The only exceptions that I see to lower income countries that have a high percentage of people outside the EU, traveling outside the EU, is going to be, I guess, Croatia, which, you know, maybe people go to Serbia, maybe people go to Bosnia. I'm not sure exactly, but I assume there's still some you know, between the former Yugoslav countries, there must be some sort of traveling that's still happening. And maybe the same thing with Slovenia, but there I'm really not sure about that. Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania are interesting because the percentage of, so the populations are approximately 1, 2, and 3 million people, and the percentage of Russians is the opposite. It's about 30, 20, and 10%. So I think a lot of the numbers in the Baltic states are driven by Russian people going, visiting back to Russia, or maybe other Russian-speaking areas like parts of Ukraine or Belarus or something, former Soviet countries. So I think that that's going to be an influence there. So I guess in conclusion, it looks like this is a combination of very specific regional factors, but also just disposable income, basically. All right, Massachusetts stereotypes. Here we go. I myself am no stranger to stereotype maps. I actually created, well, not quite a few, but a couple that I thought were good. And part of the motivation for me creating them was because I thought that these existing ones that I found on the internet didn't have the best like graphic design, so I challenged myself to create a better one. So I actually have a pretty popular one of the San Francisco Bay Area that used Urban Dictionary to identify stereotypes, and actually it's for sale. Okay, but Massachusetts, you know, honestly, I haven't spent much time in Massachusetts. I'm not extremely familiar with the state, but it looks like Boston is considered the hub of the universe. It looks like, okay, there's this area which I believe is Cambridge, Mass, which is commies, which I guess makes sense because it's like students and stuff, and academics. Leafy, liberal, and loaded. So these are presumably the rich suburbs of Boston. Rich, highly educated suburbs. Townies and immigrants. I don't really know what townie means in this case. It sounds like some kind of Boston slang. Mill towns and methadone. This is kind of like the Rust Belt of Massachusetts. I know Lowell is a city there and some other stuff, and that's like, you know, mill towns. So it used to be in an industrial area until the last 50 years or so, where things kind of shut down as manufacturing moved out of that area. So the methadone part doesn't surprise me too much. Witches, fishermen, and quaint-ass towns. Yeah, that makes sense. There's a lot of just quaint, like when you think of like a cute New England like sea town, that's like this whole area. yeah, I don't know. I forget what, like Gloucester, like I don't know what towns there are out there, but I've zoomed around on Google Maps, you know, a bit, and I guess I have some acquaintances from this type of area. So beaches with killer flies. Okay, well that sucks. So remind me not to go to the beach in northern Massachusetts. Irish Riviera. Okay, that's something I wasn't aware of, but I guess it's just a bunch of Irish people. That makes sense. Gillette Stadium. Okay, I actually don't even know what that is. But West Portugal. I was aware that this area has a lot of Portuguese people. Portuguese, I guess, people both from Portugal and I guess from Brazil. So just Portuguese speakers in general. This is New Bedford, I think, is that area. Or shoot. Well, anyway, somebody can correct me if I'm messing it up. But yeah, a lot of Portuguese people there. Cranberry bogs. Okay. So bogs and cranberries. Rotaries and traffic jams. White Florida. I mean, Florida has a lot of white parts, so I'm not sure what that means. Guam beaches. Okay, that's funny. And the white Caribbean. Again, the Caribbean has a lot of like rich white people, so I don't think white is the right term for this, but I see what they're getting at. They're basically getting at like New England old money, like white families who are, yeah, you know, this is Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket. Actually, I forget which is which. I believe this is Martha's Vineyard here on the west, and Nantucket is on the east, but 50-50 shot. Yeah, and then the Cape Cod. So yeah, wicked cold beaches. I haven't been, but I've had friends who went to Cape Cod, and they're like, yeah, it's just like really cold and like not that interesting. Gaycation land. I didn't know that, but I guess a bunch of gay people go here for vacation. And then yeah, so White Florida. So I mean, basically, if you're rich, you have you know, you have like stuff on the islands. And if you're not so rich, then maybe your summer house is here in White Florida. So, okay, let's just keep going. So, yeah, people who talk weirder and drive worse than us, Rhode Island. Again, and I don't think I've ever been to Rhode Island. I've been to Connecticut, Massachusetts and stuff, but I don't think I've ever been to Rhode Island. So, nope, I have nothing to add to that. Annexed territory of the evil empire. New York is hell, okay. Questionably New England. Well, I mean, you know, Massachusetts is kind of like the core of New England, so of course Connecticut is going to be questionably New England. And frankly, like southern Connecticut, like Stamford, Greenwich, those areas, like that's more like the New York area, so I'm not even sure if that really counts as New England, but all right, this is pretty New England. Interesting. Let's see, definitely not New England is basically the state of New York. Cultured hill folk. Yeah, this green area is where like Williams College, Amherst College, like all these fancy places are located. Probably a bunch of private schools, I would assume. So it's like, yeah, like hill folk, like they dress, you know, they kind of look almost like rednecks a little bit, but then they all have like advanced degrees and stuff. So that's interesting. Hippie farmers, hippie students. What is hippie students? Is that? Oh, maybe that is like UMass, or maybe that is Amherst. Yeah, I don't know too much about Massachusetts, unfortunately. Blight and basketball, okay. And there be dragons here. Sure, okay. Snow and long commutes. Oh yeah, and Worcester. So none of those things really mean much to me, again, as someone who really hasn't spent much time in Massachusetts, but okay. This is a cool map because it's like relatively pleasing to the eye, fairly nicely made, and it's like not particularly mean to anybody. It's just like kind of nice and funny. So vacation and lobsters. Okay, so that's Maine, presumably. Republican refugee zone, tax-free shopping. Yeah, like New Hampshire's state motto is live free or die. And of the New England states, it's kind of the most like Republican voting. So, okay. All right. Last one, I think. Pakistan-India border can be seen from space. Yeah, so that's not surprising. I mean, it's a very hotly, not hotly contested, but you know, it's kind of a flashpoint. I think there have been wars between Pakistan and India. So it's no surprise that the border is very well illuminated at night. And I don't think the threat there, it's not like the US-Mexico border, for example, where the primary threat is people crossing over undetected and things like that. I don't think that that's as much of a problem for the Pakistan-India border, but what it is just they have these elaborate like shows of strength, almost to the level of a game kind of, or like a performance. So there's a very famous like changing of the guard ceremony at this one border post between Pakistan and India, where the guards have extremely like elaborate displays of, like military drills and uniforms that are very elaborate and things like that. And that's kind of their way of having like a little rivalry between Pakistan and India, but keeping it safe and not launching nuclear bombs at each other, because both countries have nuclear weapons. So thank God that it's limited to that. And so it's no surprise that there's the border, there's considerable resources put in securing this particular border, as like a geopolitical flashpoint. So, and overall, I love photographs from space because it's just so beautiful, to see this. And there's no doubt that this photo was a little bit enhanced, sort of to, brighten the colors a little bit. So if you were actually in the International Space Station, it would look considerably darker. You wouldn't be able to see all of the features like this because it is nighttime, right? It's dark. And so there is some residual light, but it's not going to be this bright in real life. We see Karachi, which is Pakistan's main port city, and the Indus River, this whole basically this whole row of cities going from, I forget, I used to know like Pakistan cities really well, but because I worked on a project, but now it's like I forget, Hyderabad and it's just like a string of cities going this way. And then here we have Punjab, which is a region kind of shared between Pakistan and India. There's the border, it's a single cultural region, but it's pretty much split between the two countries. And that's where you have a lot of the major cities of Pakistan. And then all the way here where it starts to fade out, you can see the metropolis of the capital of Pakistan is Islamabad, which is a city that was artificially constructed, kind of like other capital cities like Brasilia in Brazil, or Canberra, Australia, Ottawa, Canada, even you could say Washington, D.C., although that was 200 years ago, but Islamabad was built, I think, in the 60s or thereabouts. But the major city that was there was Rawalpindi. So I mentioned the Baltimore phenomenon in previous videos, where a more significant city often obscures a fairly large and important other city on maps. And Rawalpindi is the best example of that. It's a huge city. It has, I believe, 2 million people or more, depending on how you count it. But because it's right next to the capital of Pakistan, which is Islamabad, it never shows up on maps because there's just not enough room to put one dot for Islamabad and one dot for Rawalpindi. So that's what you can see here. I'm not totally sure about the Indian side. For example, what is this city here? I'm not totally sure, but you can see, the desert here, the Thar Desert, and it's really cool to look at images like this because it's real life. It's not a map, it's not a simulation, it's not a drawing. It reminds you that everything that we're mapping is actually physically there. And to me, that's especially to someone like me who spends so much time in the abstract world of cartography, not only is it good to be grounded like this with real life images, but it's also just mind-blowing. I mean, sometimes you forget that the world actually exists in all of its diversity and variety and and beauty, and it's true, it's out there, and photos like this I think help to capture that. All right, great place to end. So this was another video. I'm posting it late this week. I'm recording it late just because of some plans. But I will try to continue, I think, to post on Tuesdays. If I don't post on Tuesdays, I will certainly post once a week. That's for sure. So again, stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next video.